by now you have heard that Michigan and 5 former staffers have reached an agreement with the NCAA on penalties regarding an ongoing investigation into recruiting and coaching violations. Among those penalties are Michigan will serve 3 years of probation, the program will pay a fine and face recruiting restrictions, and the coaches involved will face a 1-year show cause order. Our Sam Webb from the Michigan Insider is here to make sense of this situation. So Sam, what should Michigan fans make of this probation? What's it mean for the program, actually?
I think it means that the tangible punishment, the punishment that you can see, feel, and touch from a fan perspective, was actually served last year. This is why you self-impose. I think Michigan saw that there were some things that they had actually done. I mean, there was the improper contact with the recruit during COVID, which I think was actually quite rampant, but Michigan got dinged for it. They had an analyst coaching, which is actually quite rampant, but I think Michigan got dinged for it. You had watching workouts on Zoom. Some secondary violations that they actually did that, ironically, this was on the verge of being settled well over a year ago. And I don't know whether it was the NCAA having an axe to grind with Jim Harbaugh because it got taken to another level with the accusation that he misled investigators. So was it an axe to grind with Jim Harbaugh that made that sort of negotiation fall apart, a year and a half ago? Or was it the fact that the negotiation got leaked and that they were upset? But I don't know. But there were some things that Michigan had conceded already. And because there were some things they conceded already, they decided as an institution that, hey, we're going to serve this punishment right now. Last fall, you're going to have coaches sit out. Jim Harbaugh sat out 3 games. A couple of his coaches sat out, 1-game suspensions themselves. And then that was going to be their self-imposed punishment while they resolved the part about Jim misleading, allegedly, the NCAA. Oh, and Jim off to the NFL. Michigan and the NCAA kind of came to the conclusion that part is not going to be settled by either of us, Michigan or the NCAA. Let's just settle our part of it, and you deal with Jim however you can deal with Jim over there.
Sam, you said something that caught my attention. Maybe you answered it talking about Jim Harbaugh, but when you said the coaches texting recruits during the dead period is rampant, and then the analyst field is rampant, we all know that. But why is the NCAA going after Michigan and not finding someone else to make an example of?
So I'm talking about specifically during COVID. Mm-hmm. I'm not talking about it being rampant now outside of COVID. You had some rules were changing seemingly by the week, by the day. When was a dead period? What was contact? Was contact with a recruit? You could text them and you could Zoom with them or FaceTime with them, but once they hit campus, well, that's improper contact if you text or Zoom with them on campus. But if they're a footstep off of campus, well, now it's not a violation. Those were that's why I said you had a lot of things going on during COVID that, coaches, they were having some infractions that I think were more a product of the time than it was a habitual offense. But if you get caught doing it, if you do a crime, if you do 55 and a 45, you serve the punishment, you pay the ticket. And I think Michigan was ready to do that over a year ago, which is why you saw them self-impose the punishments that they self-imposed, with coaches missing a grand total, I think, of 5 games. Jim missed 3, Sharon Moore missed 1, Grant Newsom missed 1, and it seems pretty likely that there won't be any further game suspensions as a result of the punishment.
Cool. Thanks for explaining. Looking ahead to this upcoming season, Michigan has a lot of roster building to do. They've lost more than a dozen players from the championship team to the NFL. So which position battles should we be watching in the offseason, and how does that impact how they're attacking the transfer portal?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the most obvious position battle that people are paying attention to is quarterback. J.J. McCarthy off to the pros, the greatest quarterback in Michigan history. I think they are very comfortable with how their quarterbacks have progressed. I think it was one of the reasons they didn't attack the portal heading into the spring or heading into the winter when they could have. I think Alex Orji, who is a dual threat guy, a big physical guy who's gotten some snaps, is 235 pounds, can really run the football, really cerebral guy too. I think his journey has been one of improving mechanics, his footwork and technique. But as far as knowing the scheme and knowing the route progressions and all that stuff he has, but now you got to get some time on task being the guy and sharpening your technique. And I think he's the leader in the pack right now. But between him, you got Jack Tuttle, who's played. He's going into his 7th year of eligibility now. He's started Power 5 games. Jaden Denegal, who is a guy who came in the same year as Alex Orji. I think, and then you got a young guy in Jaden Davis, who they, I think, are really excited about, but not going to rush into action. You have some players that I think they're really comfortable enough to not just go and get a guy that they think would be depth. If they went to get a guy in the portal as a quarterback, it's a guy that they know, hey, this is our likely starter. And I just don't see that guy in the portal right now. That's why I think you'll see them go after other positions. Offensive tackle, I think, will be one. You got 4 guys that I think they feel good about likely being starters. But the offensive tackle opposite Miles Hinton is a battle between guys who don't have much experience in Alex Gentry, former top 247 recruit, and Jeff Percy. So I think they'll look there. I think they'll look to add some size at receiver. They have a lot of capable and talented receivers, but they're all like 6 foot and below. So I think they'll try to add some 6'2", 6'3" plus receivers in the portal. I think they'll try to get defensive tackle depth in the portal as well. They got the best defensive line in the country probably, but what made them so good last year is they had a great rotation. They want to add to that. And then you look on the back end where they got a key injury at safety with Rod Moore going out. You want to add a safety, and then you want to add a corner to add to the competition opposite Will Johnson. You do those things, and now you're back to having depth that Michigan had last year.
Michigan's spring game is coming up this Saturday, noon local time. Who are some names we should watch in that scrimmage?
Yeah, a lot of the names that I just mentioned. You'll go with the star players, of course. Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, best defensive tackle combo in the country. Will Johnson, All-American as a sophomore, defensive MVP in the national championship game. Of course, people look at those, and then the quarterbacks. But I'm going to be paying the closest attention to the battles that I think are really tied to the portal as well. How does that offensive tackle battle with Alex Gentry and Jeff Percy, how does that look? How does that linebacker room look? Because you got Jayshon Barham, who came over as a transfer from Maryland. He's been lights out. And then you have Ernest Hausman, who came over as a transfer last year, the number 1 linebacker in the portal. So 2 years in a row, got the number 1 linebacker in the portal. But what about the depth? So be looking at guys like Jimmy Rolder behind him. What do the guys behind the starters look like at that position? And then at the corner spot, Jair Hill, who's a top 247 guy. He's competing for the corner spot opposite Will Johnson, along with DJ Waller. That's going to be an intriguing battle. And then the safety, another top 247 guy, and Zeke Berry has been really moved up the pecking order with the injury to Rod Moore. He's really responded in the spring thus far. And so how does he do when the lights are on? How does he do on State Street when over in the big house? That'll be a question. We'll get our first glimpse of that at the spring game on Saturday. All
right. Sam Webb with the latest from Ann Arbor. Thanks so much for joining us. And for more Michigan news and analysis, go ahead and check out themichiganinsider.com. Sam Webb, Alejandro Zuniga, their entire team, they are the best at covering a school that always finds its way into the headlines. That's themichiganinsider.com.